Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace, love, and blessings of Allah be with you. Welcome to day number 16. You're over halfway through Ramadan. Congratulations, 2 weeks in. And now we're looking at the concept of permanent presence. Permanent presence. This is the next transformation I want you to experience. You know, I used to believe, that yesterday we talked about the idea of presence and the idea of ihsan requiring presence. And the hadith about ihsan giving us 3 methods to become present. The first is to put your full attention into what you're doing. The second is to clear your mind of thought. Ask yourself what your next thought is going to be, or just kind of slow your thoughts down and notice the gap in between them. And the third, that makes you present. And the third is put your attention inside your body. That makes you present. So I discovered this idea of presence many years ago when I read a book by a guy called Eckhart Tolle. And then I listened to some spiritual scholars, some ulama who are very spiritual, and they talk about this idea of presence. And I thought that my objective was to be present all the time. And basically, pretty much the objective is, be present all the time. Well, there's a couple of things about that. Number one, if you're attempting to be present all the time, a lot of times we screw ourselves out of being present now because we're worried that we won't be able to stay in this state tomorrow. And by doing that, we're thinking about tomorrow, and then we're no longer thinking about the present moment right now. All thoughts of the past and future pull you out of the present moment. And they're all from nafs, That's not necessarily true. They're not necessarily all from nafs. Again, the criteria is whether thought is causing feeling or not. But thoughts about the past and the future aren't really necessary. Put all of your attention into the present moment. That's where all of your power is. So now I want to address the idea of permanent presence. How do you stay present all of the time? Well, I want to tell you a story about a huge breakthrough I had in this area. I was in Sitges, which is a beach town near Barcelona where I live. And so I was in Sitges, I was in this beach town, and I was at a retreat with Chip Chipman and a guy called Jamie Smart. And it was a really beautiful retreat. We were exploring the nature of thought and the nature of consciousness and the nature of mind and the inside-out paradigm that I've been sharing with you during this series. And I was really blissing out. And I went and sat down on a bench overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. And it was an overcast day, kind of cloudy, but it was so beautiful. I could just see the waves crashing on the beach. And it occurred to me that the waves crashing on the beach were a perfect metaphor for thoughts and consciousness in the mind. And it occurred to me that, as the little waves crash and you see the wave break and it looks white as the wave breaks, I was like, that's kind of like thought. And it's the thoughts that show up on the surface of our mind, the thoughts we become aware of are like the little waves that crash on the beach. And then, behind that, there's the whole sea that's powering it, and that's consciousness. And the mind are powering the thoughts that come and crash on the beach. So there's the thought that you become conscious of, but then there's the whole system that's powering it. And that's the power of thought and power of consciousness, the power of mind. And my friend came and sat down next to me, and she said, and she's a brilliant coach, and she said, I was telling her this, and she said, yeah, it's really deep. You're really starting to get this stuff on a deep level. And she said, what's really amazing as well is if you look out further out towards the horizon, then that's like the infiniteness of mind and consciousness. And the further out you go, the deeper the water gets. So I was kind of experiencing this and blissing out and really realizing that my whole experience of life has been coming to me through the power of thought and consciousness and the mind. I was really blissing out. So then, I went back to the hotel, got a good night's rest, really blissed out, alhamdulillah. Woke up the next morning feeling really good. And then I got into the shower, and this whole time, pretty much the whole day before, I was present the whole evening. I was realizing my thought is creating the world. My experience of the world is coming through thought. All of the beauty I can see in the world right now, my mind is generating it. How amazing. And I was seeing this. And I went to sleep, and I woke up the next day, having spent the whole day before just being totally blissed out and present. And I got in the shower, and I started showering, and I suddenly started fantasizing about how in the future I'm going to be telling people about this amazing new stuff I know about the nature of presence. And all of a sudden I was imagining myself on stage teaching and that kind of thing. And I completely lost the present moment. And then pretty soon those fantasies I was having turned a bit negative. And then I started getting all frustrated, like, oh my gosh, it's gone. It's worn off. I was blissed out for a day. I was totally present. And now that presence has gone away because now I'm fantasizing about the future again. I was like all frustrated. So I went into class the next day, went into this retreat in Sitges, hanging out with Jamie Smart and Chip Chipman. And I said to them, hey, what's going on? Yesterday, I was totally blissed out. I was totally present. Today in the shower, I thought we were talking about permanent change. The change is gone. Like the presence is gone. And you know what I love about retreats like this is about hanging out with amazing coaches is it's not always the facilitator who says the thing that changes your life the most. The coach who came to sit with me at the beach the day before was sitting next to me again, coincidentally. And I said, and I was like telling her, I was telling everyone in the room, I'm frustrated because I was present yesterday, now it's disappeared today. And she looked at me and said, Mamoon, have you been trying to turn the sea off? I was like, oh, I've been trying to turn the sea off. I've been trying to stop thoughts altogether. Thought, you're always living in the feeling of thought. Thought is always going to be there. You're always going to have thoughts. Not all thoughts are going to be damaging, even if they're of the future and the past. And it just occurred to me, I was trying to turn the sea off. The more you try and turn the sea off, the more frustrated you're going to get because the sea's never going to be turned off. You're always going to be having thoughts. And sometimes they will be of the past and the future. But noticing them is all that's required. And even if you don't notice them, you're actually okay not noticing them as well until they start really pulling you into their fantasy. When the dreams start turning into nightmares, then it might be useful to wake up and realize you've just been dreaming. The final thing I'll say is tomorrow we're going to look at if the purpose of presence isn't to try and force yourself to be present 24/7, then what is the real purpose of presence? That is what we're going to explore in the next episode, inshallah. May the peace, love, and blessings of Allah be with you always.